month. Obviously, July, August, we got quite a few things after Black Hat and DEF CON, so we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. If you've got some favorite talks you went to, if you happen to be there, I'm happy to have you come up and talk about that as well. I put some of my highlights in there, and we also have someone new helping us with the news tonight.
Kind of, sort of. You guys know who I am. I've just never done news before.
Take it off.
No, I just put this on, dog.
All right, so one of the first things we like to cover is always the upcoming events. So we've got some standing great groups here in Kansas City that are security focused, like ISC Squared and ISSA, OWASP. So if you're part of those groups and coming here, thanks for coming here and supporting those other groups as well. Some cons coming up. The biggest one probably up there is DerbyCon. Who's going to DerbyCon? Because I know the tickets for that sold out quickly. Awesome. I know we got a few people that are. You guys all carpooling down there? Or? There's usually a group that drives down every year, right?
I drove last year, but I don't know.
Awesome. All right. Well, cool. And then I know that BroCon's coming up in Illinois, and then I'd never heard of CornCon.
Best name.
But I know the DSM guys know about it, right? So it's supposed to be pretty good? It's small? All right. But Davenport's only like 4 or 5 hours from here. So it should be a good road trip if you're interested in doing that. All right. So anybody heard of this guy that was arrested in Vegas right after DEF CON? Been in the news? So kind of interesting that he was arrested because they think that he was suspected in developing the Kronos Trojan, the banking Trojan, although he was the guy who kind of found and stopped the spread of WannaCry. We discovered that, hey, if we can change a couple things from a DNS perspective, we can stop it from spreading. He bailed out, so he posted $30,000 in bail. They I guess, deemed that he wasn't going to be a flight risk. He is from Britain, by the way. He does have to go to lovely Wisconsin, where the indictment was served. So much for, if you guys saw, I mean, he obviously had a great time in Las Vegas. He was driving, I think, a different Lamborghini, Ferrari every day. He had rented out the biggest rental home in Vegas, right?
And a lot of people say that that's indicative of the fact that he might have gotten, a lot of money from this Trojan.
No,
but at the same time,
no, there's a lot of 22-year-olds I know that can afford to rent a Ferrari every day. I mean,
okay, well, maybe
about?
not a lot of 22-year-olds, but think about this. Think about how famous he is and how secure of a job he's got right now at his age. And if you live in the UK and you show up in Vegas and you're only going to be there for what, a few days, and you've just got, a whole lot of money in your back pocket? Come on, you telling me you wouldn't do that?
I know. So, did anybody leave Vegas on Tuesday after DEF CON? Nobody?
Monday.
I left on Monday. This happened on Tuesday when he was arrested. He was trying to leave back, I guess, to the UK. But so I didn't get to see it, but that would have been kind of cool to see. No, my understanding was Tuesday at the airport. Yeah, but I heard there was a significant police presence in DEF CON on Sunday at some point. Is that true? I didn't see anything there, but there was, yes. I get yes. So I don't. Was somebody else? Was
They're
someone
always
else
there,
who
even
else?
if you can't see them.
Who else was arrested? Trent, you make it back? All right. So we'll see what happens to this guy. Yeah, fun stuff.
All right, so after that, we've got a random dude who has decided to go ahead and sandbox Windows 10 Defender, okay? Yeah, it's awesome. The new Defender, that they toted and saying it's going to be awesome and everything. Well, apparently they didn't sandbox it before they shipped it out to your box. So why is this important, okay? So again, one of the best things about SecKC is we have a lot of different ranges of skills here, from complete novice to super uber pro lead. So for those of you that don't know, sandboxing is, in layman's terms, what? Okay, shoving over here.
Cattle prod.
Shoving over here. Now I'm in front of the presentation. Anyway, sandboxing is basically isolating something, okay? And of course, what is Windows Defender doing? It is isolating malware or files in general. Hopefully not malware. Hopefully you're not downloading that. But it is isolating files. It is doing its random tests, what have you. Haha, you're getting prodded too. Dirty. And for whatever reason, so the old version of Defender was sandboxed. Okay, did a little bit of research. I wasn't sure if it was. I assumed it was, but you know what assuming makes us. You're wrong. However, they did not sandbox this one. That's the one thing I don't understand. Now, to their credit, they are working on that. They do have plans to sandbox it, but that being said, should they have shipped it to your box prior to finishing that work?
It's not a bug, it's
course, they don't need a QA department. We're their QA department.
It's interesting stuff. So we'll see what happens if Microsoft actually pulls through and does it. But if you're interested in it, I think you did post the how-to at this point, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
If you're interested in sandboxing Windows 10 Defender, have at it. Google it if your Google Foo's good, and you should be able to find it. All right. So those interested in Bitcoin,
Yeah!
Bitcoin was forked with a new fork called Bitcoin Cash. So the kind of interesting thing about a fork like this is that if you had Bitcoin, you also now get Bitcoin Cash.
Everyone buy Bitcoin Cash!
So everyone buy Bitcoin Cash, says the bill. Did you have anything to do with this? No. But, so some of the drawbacks are, there are some exchanges that aren't accepting Bitcoin Cash at this point. So one of the drawbacks, I guess, of cryptocurrency is that it may or may not be universally accepted, which means what happens to the value, who can cash in, cash out, what do you do with it? So what are you going to do with yours? Bill?
Oh, you asking me?
Yeah.
Buy it and hold it!
He's buy and hold it. All right, we got a sell over here, hit point 4, and he's out.
One other thing with the Bitcoin Cash stuff, there are a lot of scams because of the exchanges that won't do it.
Right.
So if you have Bitcoin Cash, you're trying to get it, they say,
So the comment is that there are a lot of scams saying, hey, you can't, go to exchange and, exchange and turn in, redeem your Bitcoin Cash. Come to me, I'll take care of that for you. Just, PayPal you it or something to you. Yeah.
I don't actually have any Bitcoin Cash.
You don't have any?
My accountant says,
Oh, Bill says he doesn't have any Bitcoin Cash according to his accountant. Never mind. Your exuberance was noted.
right.
All right, and next up. So, how many Symantec customers in here? Anyone? Anyone?
No one dares raise their hand.
Of course not. Okay,
You
well.
can't ask a question like that. Are you kidding me?
So those of you who have not heard, what originally started as an investigation into some 125 improperly issued certificates then blossomed out to having discovered that Symantec has now issued something to the order of 30,000 false certificates at this point, okay, over the past, what was the time frame? That escapes me right now, but nonetheless, that is a lot of bad certs, and understandably, no one really wanted to push the waters at first. Google was the first one to push, and Apple has joined them, Microsoft has joined them, all of the major browsers have joined them. They are being completely phased out of certificate trust stores. I think the final phase out is something like 2019, maybe it's super late 18, can't remember. So when that was announced, basically we all knew Symantec had two options: rebuild from scratch or bail out. And they're out, so they're selling to DigiCert, and that's all well and good. Who knows whether that will be good in the future or not. But there are already a number of competitors that are sort of pouncing on these Symantec customers and saying, hey, here are some reasons why you might not want to go to DigiCert. So if you are a Symantec customer, kind of expect to hear that back and forth for a little while.
Yeah, not a good deal. Obviously we depend on certificates a lot. They're very important for ensuring security in a number of different ways. So a breach like that, where you can exploit what was a legitimate certificate is not good, obviously. So bad for Symantec, $950 million. Somebody may have even overpaid for that. So Trent's like, this is, of course, his mind's already spinning, right? He's like, this is a great fishing opportunity. Just say, hey, I'm representative of DigiCert, and we're going to help you out. Send me your private cert, and we'll make sure you're squared away, right? Awesome. I'm here to help. You don't want to lose your customers. Heck no. All right. I know a lot of people in here probably read Brian Krebs. I know that I'm a regular reader of him, and I know that, in fact, he is my IDS, like that says. So he's been, for quite a while, he's been tracking the Mirai botnet, and so he finally identified the botmaster as Daniel K. And if you guys know, Daniel K, as the botmaster, used a derivative of Mirai to hijack a lot of routers in Deutsche Telekom, which So his intent was to use it to create kind of a big DDoS network. In the end, he actually took down their network, affected like almost 1 million of their customers. He affected like 100,000 routers in various telecoms in the UK. The interesting thing is that his sentence was suspended. So, well, I guess we'll just have to see what happens. You know, a suspended sentence doesn't mean it's dismissed, but at least for the time being, he's not going to be doing, you know, again, making big rocks into small rocks or whatever they do. I guess in the UK, I don't know.
It's kind of like with Malware Tech Blog. It's all speculation at this point. You can only wait and see.
Yep, we'll have to see what happens to him.
All right, and then there was also recently, the registrar in charge, or rather the individual in charge of registering the I/O name servers let that lapse on accident. Oops. I/O is a very popular vanity server for developers, for, well, all nerds basically. But, you know, so what does this mean basically? Obviously, should someone have maliciously registered one of those name servers, they could have redirected any request. Well, okay, not any, depends on which one it selects in the round robin rotation, but point being, they could redirect that to malicious sites. So you think you're going to someone's github.io page, when all of a sudden you are redirected to veryevilbadsite.ru.
I just feel good that my slither.io access is not going away, so I can make long snakes for the rest of my life. I'm good.
And this was apparently discovered because the gentleman that found this, I guess, had some script running and he has a number of .io servers that he runs, or domains that he runs, and he found that they were all sort of failing to go in, and he went and investigated why, and then he came to find out, oh hey, he ended up purchasing one of the name servers for $90. He owned the registration momentarily before he sent off that email.
I don't know, I guess you could create a calendar entry to remind yourself to renew that, or, I don't know, use a credit card. Slack has a bot, can remind you to do stuff. I'm not sure how that happened, but whatever. All right, Broadcom. So this is an interesting one that came out pretty much just before Black Hat DEF CON started. It was patched for most devices, prevalent primarily in mobile devices, mobile phones. So anything that uses the Wi-Fi chipset from Broadcom was affected through a heap overflow. And of course, everybody probably here knows, you know, kernels have been locked down and other things, you know, have been protected, etc. But even so, vendors, device manufacturers, go to other manufacturers to create subcomponents for their devices. Broadcom is one of those. So it has its own controller, etc. So a researcher discovered that, hey, we can send a heap overflow to this device and then essentially take over not only the device, but then take over the radio set. So now it became a broadcasting beacon that can infect other Broadcom Wi-Fi devices, essentially becoming a big worm. So big deal, pretty much has been patched. If you haven't been patched, I'm sorry. But this was a big one. I'm sure that this is going to release a whole slew of other vulnerabilities as well related to Broadcom and other embedded devices that are put in other manufacturers' stuff.
The big risk there, of course, is that unless you've got the flagship phone for some carrier, you probably aren't getting updates. You know, now if you've got an Android device from Google, for example, then of course you are getting over-the-air updates. But think about all of those, you know, free Android phones, those budget Android phones that your phone companies are pitching towards people. Those are the phones that are going to remain exploitable because the phone company isn't putting anything out to fix those devices. That's where the real danger for these things are.
Patch your shit. All right, why don't you talk about this one?
Yep, so there's not a whole heck of a lot to talk about here, just the fact that Microsoft has added Windows 10 officially to the bug bounty program. So the things that are in scope, what they specifically show, Hyper-V, Windows Defender Application Guard, I don't know what the hell that is, of course everyone's favorite, Beatbox Edge, but then all insider preview builds, my slide cut off. So Windows 10 is in scope, all of Windows 10 with respect to something they call it mitigation bypass. And of course they've got a website where you can read the pages and pages of terms of service where they very painstakingly outline their definition of mitigation bypass. But still, that's really exciting. They are, opening up the entire operating system as fair game. If you can find some way to quote unquote, bypass some defense that they have, again, they specifically define that in their own terms there, but it's all open for you. So that's awesome. Microsoft will pay you money for it.
So, like, up to this point, there's been no incentive for researchers to find bugs in Windows 10?
Not that I'm aware of.
So, like, we might see more? Now?
Gas.
Gas?
No way.
No, now I got an incentive? I might actually go find something? Yeah, that's going to be interesting. We'll see what happens there. Here you go, another one for you.
Oh, yeah. All right. So, favorite cryptocurrency, Ethereum. There have been a string of losses lately. This is just the one that I'm the most familiar with. So Ethereum had a feature, multi-signature parity for wallets, for recovering wallets. So the idea being that if you have forgotten the passphrase for your Ethereum wallet, you trust some certain number of individuals. And if a threshold that you set of those individuals says that, okay, I'll sign off on this request to get your password back, then you've got your passphrase back. So I guess, for example, maybe I've got this whole table over here. They are my multi-sig group. So I've got, 5 people over there. And then let's say I say 3 of them need to sign off on it, okay? So I, send out my request, hey guys, I forgot my passphrase, I'm an idiot. I need you guys to help me sign off and get my new passphrase. As long as 3 of them sign off and say, okay, I know that this was really Aaron that asked me this, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off on it, I would get my new passphrase. The issue is that there was a bug with the implementation. So nothing wrong with multi-parity itself, but it was improperly implemented. So what ended up happening, a malicious actor ended up stealing $30 million worth of Ethereum from affected wallets. Now, luckily, a group of white hats sort of noticed this happening at the same time, figured out what the source of the problem was and how to exploit that. And they wound up stealing or recovering, depending on how you want to look at it, 78 million from other wallets that were affected. Now, I say recovered in quotes because they have to figure out how to get all that back. And I don't know how they plan on doing it. Obviously, it's all traceable, just I can't even imagine how much of a pain in the ass that is going to be to redistribute $78 million worth of Ethereum. So
they borrowed with the option to return? Is that kind of...
Maybe it's like the government where they owe you money, but if you don't ask for it,
I recovered this stuff. I recovered 78 million by stealing it. All right. Okay, moving on. All right. So Black Hat DEF CON highlights. So some of the really cool ones, I think one of them actually, the smart gun one, hit the news before Black Hat even started. But there are smart guns out there, guns like the pew pew guns, right? That only will allow the owner to fire them. Well, there's a guy that was able to bypass that with a set of magnets. Yep. So there you go. So much for that. And another great talk that I saw was cracking safes, right? So this involved magnets to some extent, but also erector sets and an Arduino and some awesome know-how. But the guy from SparkFun actually built a device that could crack a safe, and he was hoping it was going to happen in his 50-minute talk at DEF CON, and he was lucky because it happened in about 24 minutes or so. So you can crack a safe in less than 30 minutes possible. Everything's got to line up, but he said I think the maximum really for what he was doing would probably be about 84 minutes or so. So even if he couldn't do it in 45, another 30 minutes or so later, that safe would have been open, toast, done. A lot of different ways to bypass that, but even then, he said there are ones like with the combo, like the pin electric combo can work. However, that can also be defeated with strong enough magnets too. So you know what? If you have a safe, keep it close to you because if that safe gets out of your hands, forget it. Someone's going to get into it in one way or another. I mean, either put some explosive against it, welder, I don't know. But anyway, we also learned that it's pretty easy to hack a lot of stuff. Everything from radioactive sensors to wind farms. If you guys attended that talk, anybody go to the wind farm talk? There's one at Black Hat, and they kind of flipped it. And they did it at DEF CON as well. Really talking about control networks and all the things that could be exploited in a wind farm, and pretty interesting stuff. I'd sure hate to see, a big windmill, end up come crashing down because now it's out of control. But there's a lot of crazy stuff that can be done. The exploiteers did another great talk this year, talking about how they could exploit a crap ton of shit. Basically, Blu-ray players, TVs, Amazon Echo Line, etc. And I was able to steal from them some of their hardware devices that they use for that, so if you're interested in them. So basically, the premise of their talk was that eMMC, embedded memory chips, a lot of consumer devices, can be read by standard SD card readers. So you know what an MMC chip is. Everybody kind of familiar with MMC, that they moved to SD cards, right? So this little device here, a little circuit board that plugs right into an SD card reader. It's got the pinout on there, 3 wires. You can read whatever's been put on those chips. So every Galaxy phone, for example, has an eMMC on it. So you can go and read stuff like firmware, the boot cycle. A lot of companies put their certificates on there. I don't know why. So if you're interested in some, I got a bunch of extras up here. Come find me, and you're welcome to them. And I've got a sticker, so you go to that website with the sticker, and you can figure out exactly how to exploit any hardware device, probably get root, figure out what's going on with it. We already talked about the Broadcom Wi-Fi chip, and one of the best talks I saw was about drone defenses. So anybody here have a drone? I know I do. And in fact, I burned it out and now it doesn't fly anymore, but I got to fix it. So great talk about defenses for drones. There's several companies out there who are purporting to have defenses you can use to take out drones that are flying over your property.
Show us your eagle.
Yeah. So one of them being an eagle, right? Which you can't do in the U.S. But yeah, they have trained eagles. For $100,000 a year, they'll have a trainer and an eagle, and the food and the veterinary bills are all included in that. The eagle can take out drones for you if you want.
I'll do it for $50,000.
Yeah. So there's all these great things. They're all expensive. The guy is only able to get a hold of a couple of them, some shooting nets and that type of thing. But in the end, you know what? I think my 20 gauge and a 5-cent shotgun shell is pretty damn effective, my opinion. What company made RF uppers? I don't know.
They showed it in one circumstance. They're trying to sell to prisons.
Oh, right. So for prisons, yeah. In fact, there was a pretty high-profile thing in the news recently about a guy breaking out of prison. They think someone used a drone to drop off stuff in the prison yard. That's what he used to escape with. So it's pretty important. You want to, for things like a drone flying over a prison. I think they would want to be concerned about that.
All you really need is line of sight and a radio. That's it.
Yeah, so
since the Wi-Fi Pineapple Mark V I know that so Darren Kitchen, the dude who does a lot of the Hack 5 stuff, he wrote a really crappy little module for the Wi-Fi Pineapple that would shut down a Parrot AR drone, and all it did is it just jammed that 2.4 Wi-Fi signal.
You can do that, and then I saw another great talk that talked about using a sonic gun, right? So at resonance, you can shoot a sonic beam at a device and mess up the accelerometers or the gyros on it. And like you guys know, quadcopters are very dependent on gyros and accelerometers. You get those things wonky, and then your drone's falling out of the sky. So any other interesting talks that people heard or saw that they thought were cool? You want to talk about? Come up here with the mic. No. All right. So I've got these devices up here. I got a handful of them and a bunch of stickers. So if you're interested, come find me. And other than that, if you were looking for jobs, they're on the Slack.
I think there's some people coming up here as well.
All right, we're out. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Hey, Jim. Yeah, turn it down. Okay. got at least one job announcement, and if anyone else has one, come on up.
Well, I got more than one.
All right.
So, my name's Eric. I work on the CERT team at Sprint. I'll let you guys know that we got quite a number of positions open for security related. If you want to go hit up careers.sprint.com. We have a firewall engineer position. We have a risk management position as well. We have 2 level 1 CERT positions and 2 level 2 CERT positions. So again, that's at careers.sprint.com.
Not a day job, but I do have a bounty for a Slack bot. Check the SecKC Black Market channel on Slack and direct message me if you have the skills needed.
All right, anybody else? All right. Go get a drink real quick, because Dave's going to start here in just a couple minutes. Here we go. Hey, good evening. How's everybody doing tonight? Welcome to SecKC for August. It is good to be back from the desert. Yeah? How many people went out to the desert the last couple weeks? Good times? Good times. Everybody should go. Even if you didn't go this year, you should go next year. Next year we should have fewer AV problems, if for no other reason that there won't be that many opportunities to have that many AV problems again. DEF CON was a great time. Also here tonight, in addition to, well, one excellent speaker and another guy, we've got Tool back in the back. If you would like to go learn how to pick some locks this evening, go back and find them. You also may have seen the giant pile of swag that we have. Buy some t-shirts. They're in the back for sale. Look closely. There are hidden puzzles and other elements inside the shirt that you should look for. It was a lot of fun putting that together. Thank you to Bill to put all that together. We also have pins. So, hooray, it's swag for everybody. But first, Dave is going to get up here and give us a talk about a tool that you can use inside of Windows networks, presumably to wreak havoc using PowerShell, and hopefully without needing to know much about PowerShell, because I don't know a damn thing about PowerShell. Good, good. Let's give Dave a big round of applause.
That's the better one.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. All right, so this is a talk about Empire, or PowerShell Empire, depending on how you want to call it. And it's merely an introduction. So this is a tool that I really have nothing to do with, except I've been writing a class around PowerShell attacks and how to defend against them. And I've been using PowerShell for the offensive portion of that. There are probably people in this room that know more about Empire than I do. If you've ever used this tool, raise a hand. So why are you not up here giving this talk? That's what I want to know. So Empire was written, it debuted at B-Sides, Security B-Sides, Vegas 2 years ago. So this is a relatively old tool at this point in terms of internet years. What is it, like 100 now? So PowerShell Empire was written by these three fine folks. I need to give them full credit. I had really nothing to do with it. I've only been a user and only for a very short while. So another way of saying that is, let me manage expectations here. I know almost nothing about what it is I'm presenting about. So there you go. So Empire, according to its creators, is a pure PowerShell post-exploitation agent built on cryptographically secure communications without needing PowerShell.exe. So if you haven't seen some excellent talks online, go YouTube PowerShell without PowerShell, and you'll see that really all you need is the system management automation, DLL. You can inject that into pretty much any process, and now you can use any process to run PowerShell commandlets, which is kind of a beautiful thing. PowerShell Empire also is, according to the authors, it contains rapidly deployable post-exploitation modules. There's 260 plus of them to date, ranging from keyloggers to Mimikatz. It features adaptable communications to avoid network detection, all wrapped up in a usability-focused framework, and that's it for boring slides. If you want to know more about PowerShell Empire, well, I'll come back to boring slides in a bit, I guess. Go to this website. I set this thing up on an RHEL-based box, so Red Hat CentOS box. That's what I'm going to be using for demo. Most of the talk is going to be demo. Setup assumes you're running on some Debian Ubuntu-based system that has apt-get. You can still figure out how to get the thing installed if you just open up the setup script. If you're running RHEL, you can make it work, but it will take some more manual labor on your part. So with that, let's jump into a demo. So pray to the demo gods that everything works here. All right, so I'm going to be operating from this host here called Client 4, and apologies if you're in the back and you can't read it. Come up front and you'll be able to see it better. So Client 4 is the machine that I've got Empire installed on, and basically you can download this thing from the previously mentioned website. It's on GitHub. It's probably where you'll find the latest bits. You'll find a link on the previous mentioned website. But you fire it up. You're running Empire. And of course, they give you a cool splash screen, which is a stormtrooper mask there. So you've got to have the cool factor. And basically, you're sitting at a prompt. So those of you that have used Metasploit or you're familiar with Metasploit, it's kind of similar in terms of the way things work. So let me see if I can hold the mic here and type and talk at the same time. There is a quick start guide on how to use this thing, and a couple of my teammates have been using this too for the classes we're working on, and everyone has come to the same conclusion that the documentation kind of sucks. So if you're using the quick start guide, the one thing they don't tell you in the quick start guide is the first thing you need to do is create a listener. So Empire is basically command and control. So you're going to be running this back-end piece on some Linux system, right? It's all Python-based. So maybe you can get it to work on Windows. I don't know. I haven't tried. But the first thing you want to do is set up a listener. So with that, you can go into a context menu for listeners, and the way you do that is type the word listeners here. Tab completion is your friend when it comes to this tool. So you can go into listeners. I've got a listener already set up. My listener in this case is called HTTP1. It is an HTTP-based listener. In this case, I'm actually using a self-signed cert, so everything is communicating over TLS. So that speaks to the secure communications protocol. If you don't have a listener already set up, which I do in this case, from here you could type use listeners, and again, tab completion is your friend. So after you type use listener, hit space, hit tab a couple of times. They'll show you all the different types of listeners that you can use. So to configure a listener, if you want to configure the HTTP listener, you type use listener HTTP, and then you're taken to a new context menu. Typing the word info here will show you the settings for that specific listener. And if I reduce the size here a bit, maybe we can get it all to fit on one screen. So there's a bunch of different options in here. I won't go through them all. The main thing you want is make sure you've got a name for your listener. All the other things that are set here are basically default settings, except that I created a self-signed cert so I could do everything over port 443, but you could do it over port 80 if you wanted. Once you set all your options in here, and that's just simply typing set and whatever the option is, and then some value. So in this case, I could say, hey, let's change the name to HTTP1, which obviously it already is, but this is how you set the options. Just set, name of the option, and some value. Once you've done all that, and you've got everything configured the way you want it for the listener, typing the word execute here will fire up the listener. In this case, I've already got a listener running, which is why it's complaining about 443 already being used, because I already have a listener running. So we can jump back a couple of context menus here, and you can see there's 266 modules. I have a listener that's currently active. I have 0 agents currently active. So if we jump over to a Windows box, so I've got a Windows machine here that we want to compromise, and we'll just go through a basic compromise scenario. Let's say it's a phishing scenario and I've stolen credentials. Oh, that's not the right host. Hold on a second. I have VM inception going on here. I've got to scroll down, I think. So on this machine, maybe, let's fire a PowerShell prompt on this box. Ugh, hot corners. Gotta love it. All right, so on this machine, I'm logged in as Norm No Admin. This is a user with no admin privileges. which we can prove here by doing whoami /all. And you can see, based on my SID, I'm not an admin user. You can see I'm not in any admin groups here. So a really common PowerShell attack that's one of the top 3 go-to tools for red teamers that I've talked to and interviewed that use PowerShell is something called get GPP password. Anybody familiar with that attack? Anybody used it? Raise a hand if you've heard of it. All right, so this is a fun one. So Microsoft has this thing called group policy preferences, and you can use group policy preferences to manage local admin passwords. If you want to set local admin passwords across your entire enterprise, you can go into group policy preferences and you say, hey, I want the local admin password to be this. And it'll write it out to a configuration file that sits, it's an XML file, it sits on sysvol. So any authenticated user, any authenticated machine can read this file off of sysvol. It contains the local admin password. It's AES encrypted, so don't worry. Oh yes, Microsoft published the private key. Good job, Microsoft. Former employer notwithstanding. So yeah, Microsoft published the private key for this. They can't roll it because, I don't know, there's some big customers that probably need it. They don't recommend using group policy preferences. If you're on a fully patched Windows server domain controller, you can't use group policy preferences for setting passwords anymore. But if you ever used it in the past, the password's still going to be sitting out in your configuration file. Another thing I know red teamers like to do is just set the password in the configuration file. So they'll just, once they compromise the environment, they want to change local admin password everywhere to make it easier for them. They'll edit the file and just put the password in it. And then in 15 minutes, when every machine updates, they'll all have the same local admin password, so that's a good time. So I'm logged in here as a non-admin user. Let's see how easy it is to become an admin. I'm going to jump back over here and reduce the screen size so I can see what the hell's going on. I'm going to steal a bit of command line foo here. So this is something that recently people have been talking about on Twitter, red teamers that I follow. They're using the certutil command to download files from the internet because they think it's sneaky. I encourage all red teamers to use this. By the way, I'm a blue teamer, if you didn't know. Let me see if I can copy that to my clipboard since it didn't copy. Or we'll have demo fail, whichever. Oh, geez. I really don't want to type it out. And I don't think I have it in my command line history, but let's do this anyway. So we'll run certutil. -split -f. I have no idea what these commands do. I just see things on Twitter and I type them in. HTTPS. And this is a Google shortcut to what looks like a legit PowerShell repo. FUWXD7. FUWXD7. I think that's right. So this is just going to download a file, maybe. Let's try this again. Oh, I left out a keyword there, URL cache. Gotta love live demo. All right, so that downloaded this file. What's in this file? Well, if you're curious, this is the get GPP password attack. So you can look at this file. It's a PowerShell script. It contains all the code in it, including the AES private key needed to decrypt the password from sysvol. So how do I run this thing? Well, if I'm in an environment where we've got PowerShell execution policy set to restricted and you can't execute arbitrary PowerShell, Microsoft will tell you that's not a security boundary. The easy way around this is to get the content of that file and pass it out as a string, and then pass it to invoke expression, which is actually going to instantiate that script in memory. And then I can call the command get gpp pass word. And if we run this, it's going to dump the local admin password to the screen there. I'm going to be really lazy, and I'm going to pass this out. Let's just select the password. So we'll do a select, and I just want the password property, so I'm just going to select the password's property. And I'm going to pass this thing off to the clipboard so I don't have to fat finger it. So now I've got the local admin password in the clipboard on this machine. So let's become local admin. And we'll run a PowerShell prompt here. Assuming I didn't fat finger anything. So we're doing a run as, user, client1, local administrator, and we're going to run a PowerShell prompt. And it's prompting me for the password, which is in my clipboard. So let's just dump that. And now you can see I've got a new prompt here, or new window at the top of the screen. This is my, if we run who am I here, /all, you'll see, let's do this differently. So now you can see I am a local admin, and I'm in the admin group. I've got all kinds of privileges assigned to me. So there's my user SID now, ends in 500. So now I can do things with privileges on this box. So one thing I might want to do is run a PowerShell agent and run it in a privileged process. I can run PowerShell agent in a non-privileged process. You can run the PowerShell Empire agent in a non-privileged process and do this get GPP password attack from the non-privileged process and get the password and then pivot into some other process you want and gain your privileges if you'd like. But I just like doing it this way because everybody can get phished, and once the credentials are stolen, if I can get access to your box, I can go from your non-admin account to an admin account using this attack in what I'm told, according to red teamers, is most customer environments. Maybe not true in your environment, but true in this one. All right, so let's set up an agent. So we jump back to Empire, and what we have to do here is create a stager. So from here, if you type use stager and hit tab, you'll be presented with a list of different stagers that you can build. And the one I've been using is obviously for Windows environments, and I'm kind of a fan of the Launcher VBS stager. So that'll take me into that context menu, and if I type info here, it gives me, hey, here are all the options. So as I said, you can set the options here. I'm going to set my proxy to none. This thing is proxy aware. It can proxy through if you're running web proxies. You can tell it to use your web proxies. I don't need proxy creds, so I'm going to set that to none. And I'm going to set my listener to, this is the most critical piece, set your listener to the listener you created earlier. In my case, it's called HTTP1. You can change the user agent if you'd like. For my case, I'm just going to set the user agent to be none. And once I've got all my options set, I can type info again, make sure everything's set the way I want it to be. And then from here, I can type execute. And as it says, it writes out a file, temp launcher VBS. So in another window here, it's still open. We can cat the contents of this launcher. And what we have here is a VBS script. So a VB script that will invoke a PowerShell command and run this base64 encoded string, so this big long command here. And we can simply copy this to a clipboard. And from over here, if we fire up Notepad, and of course, I'm doing this in a way that's leaving all kinds of evidence on disk, so you may want to do this differently. I've already staged this file, so I'm just calling it l.vbs. So this file already exists on the machine. If it didn't, I could just drop it in. This thing is here, so now we can do cscript. A little anxious on my tab completion there. l.vbs. And that opens up a new PowerShell prompt, and if we hop back to the PowerShell Empire screen, you can see now at the bottom of the screen I've got an agent reporting. So I have my first agent.
Woo!
So if we go into the agents menu, any agents that you have calling home are going to show up here. You can interact with these agents. So tab completion again is your friend. So from here, there's a bunch of different commands you can do. You can type help pretty much anywhere in PowerShell Empire. It's going to give you context-sensitive help menus. So I could do a sysinfo command here, and it's going to, the default settings for PowerShell Empire are pretty chatty. Every 5 seconds, this thing is calling back to C2. I recommend, as a blue teamer, go ahead and leave it at the default setting. Or make it every second. I mean, why wait? Unfortunately, I mean, this is an open source thing, so you could edit, you could change the periodization for the callbacks to be some random value, but don't do that. That makes it too hard to find you. So yeah, there's some details about the agent, and if we jump back and we list the agents, note the context for the process here. It's running as administrator in a PowerShell process. That PowerShell process could die, and this agent would die. So one of the things you're going to want to do as an attacker is pivot this agent into some other long-running process. So to do that, super simple. Go into the agent in interact mode and do ps inject, and you want to know what listener you want this agent to call home to. In this case, let's call back to HTTP1, and let's pivot into LSAS, everybody's favorite. So within 5 seconds, this thing is the agent's gonna pick up the job, and it's gonna pivot this agent into the LSAS process, and we'll see a new agent report. And there it is. So now I've got 2 agents running on this box. One is running in the PowerShell process, one is running in the LSAS process. So if we jump back here and we list our agents, we can go ahead and kill this one. That's the PowerShell process. We don't need that anymore. We're now running as LSAS on this machine. So let's interact with that LSAS process a bit. So from here, I could do things like, I could run Mimikatz. Maybe. Shouldn't take that long. So things, oh, well, there we go. I guess I can't count to 5. Everything's faster when you're standing up here behind the mic. So the Mimikatz job is started, and pretty soon we'll see the output of the Mimikatz command dumped to my screen here. And there we go, there's the output of Mimikatz. You can run arbitrary shell commands, so we could do, hey, let's see, what are the network connections like on this box? So there's your netstat output. Do note, so next I'm doing queue user, let's just see who's logged into the box. Do note, as a red teamer, I love it when you do stuff like this. If you're running an LSAS and you're spawning processes from LSAS, that's my favorite. There's a bunch of built-in commands that, like Mimikatz, have no visibility into without doing something like memory analysis of the LSAS process. But anytime you run an arbitrary shell command, that's something that's relatively easy for me to find. So that's kind of PowerShell Empire in a nutshell. So Awesome, if he's here, or she, I don't honestly know, sorry, was hitting me up on Slack and saying, you know, I'm glad you're presenting on PowerShell Empire or Empire, we need more offensive talks. And this is apparently a tool that he has used before, so hopefully you're going to do other presentations on this in more depth. But I would be remiss, there's a lot more stuff this can do, obviously. So if you want to get a flavor for the kinds of things you can do with it, just type use module, and there's over 266 modules, I think it is now. This thing can do all kinds of crazy stuff. You can dump certs, you can dump the curved TGT, so you can have your golden ticket attack, you can, every red teamer's favorite here at the bottom, you can troll people with it on the blue team. But I would be remiss if I didn't, as a blue teamer, talk about defenses. So let me jump back to the slides real quick, and we'll talk about some defenses and detection for this thing. So detections and defenses. How do you figure out that this thing is running in your environment, and what do you do to keep it from running? First of all, if you're running PowerShell v2 in your environment, you deserve to get hacked. So upgrade to the latest Windows Management Framework 5.1, I think is the latest. It comes with script logging, so every PowerShell script that gets run gets logged to the Windows event log, and you can mine those things for interesting things. So you'll be able to see the user agent when it spins up in your environment. You'll see that in the script block log. Furthermore, uninstall PowerShell v2. If you install PowerShell 5.1 via the Windows Management Framework, it will not uninstall PowerShell v2, and you can bypass all of script block logging just by doing PowerShell-v2. Then you'll be running PowerShell in version 2 mode without all of the cool logging that they've implemented. If you want to go further, implement constrained language mode. I've worked in environments where this has been done. I've never set it up myself. It's, I think, somewhat complex to set up and get running, but worth doing. Monitor for odd parent-child processes. So for those of you in the back that can't see this, let me see if I can make it bigger. That's not right. So you can find things like LSAS spawning netstat or LSAS spawning QUser if you're silly enough to do that kind of thing. Obviously, you've got to know to go look for those things, but there are ways to monitor all the parent-child relationships in your environment and have those things bubble out. If you like it presented graphically, you can have it presented graphically, maybe a little easier in your environment. Monitor for odd network activity. As I said, PowerShell Empire is fairly chatty, so in this case, I've pulled out all of the network activity for LSAS in this environment over several days, and the only thing that's communicating out from LSAS over port 443 is communicating to a different IP address than everything else, and it's only on the machine I compromised. So there are ways of finding this. I mentioned the System Management Automation DLL, that's the PowerShell DLL. That thing is going to be loaded into the LSAS process when you pivot into the LSAS process. So if you run list DLLs across your entire environment, you'll see this thing. That particular DLL will be loaded into LSAS, which is what's showing on the screen here. You'll also see this DLL loaded into some legitimate processes. So if you see it in System Manager, I think is what it is, or if you see it loaded into PowerShell.exe, that's all normal stuff. But if you see it loaded elsewhere, you might want to dig a little deeper. Recall can find this. So Recall has some anomaly plugins that you can run, and they will find the thread loaded with anonymous kernel address. Other things that you can do, the standard defensive stuff, so egress filtering, least privilege, you saw how well that worked. Expense and depth, defense and depth supposedly works, and security is hard. So that's it for PowerShell Empire. Go check this thing out.
Thank you.
beacon with connectionless technology that actually means that anybody can connect to it, but also your battery is running low.
So good.
It's good stuff.
Yep. Had to slow down the frame rate and the actual.
How much bandwidth do you need to do that?
Let me look. So right now it's set to 750. I think probably kbps. So.
It's not too bad.
Yeah. It was set really high because it was set to full quality HD. Yeah. So. Trip. I didn't really get to see a whole lot of DEFCON.
It was a really frustrating year because of all the fucking videos.
Yeah.
And it really only set in, like, after I got back, how off I felt like the entire weekend was. Every talk, we were walking in expecting everything to fail, and then it did fail.
Well, we picked up on that because they would come in and they would tell us, well, just thought you should know, VGA doesn't work. And then, of course, you know, Ahab gets on there and goes, okay. I mean, you know, we put in the calls and all that, but it was just like, yeah, you could.
Well, I'm sure a lot of the stuff you heard about was coming from villages and that kind of thing.
So.
We didn't have VGA at all in the big rooms.
Well, I mean, but we heard that you guys were saying, hey, by the way, please tell AV services to ...
Yeah.
Probably not necessarily what the message you gave us. Probably more like what you meant was, please go tell AV services to go fuck themselves. But yeah, that's the big thing. A lot more medicals.
Yeah. Well, bigger place. People
Yeah.
are walking more.
Hit in the head by a lighting fixture.
Yeah, that was really weird.
Yeah. And then we knew that we have a lot of diabetics in the Goon Corps, but had somebody got went way low.
Right.
So I had to haul ass out of the final ceremonies for that. Fun stuff.
Good evening. So we're about ready to get started with our second talk of the night, and I know what you're thinking. 2 talks? I want to see more than 2 talks. Where can I get more talks? Well, you can see more talks by submitting to speak at the next SecKC, which you can go and do on our website. If you've got an idea, short talks, long talks, any kind of talk you want to give, throw it up there, and our committee will take a look at it. It's a talk.seckc.org. Yes, that is where you want to go. Next, because of my experiences in Las Vegas dealing with the Encore Video Production Company, I have a newfound appreciation for the top-notch audio-visual team that we have here. So everybody needs to, if you're on the AV team, wave your hand up in the air or do something. Give these guys a big round of applause. Because they get here early and leave late every month and put in a lot of work for us. Without further ado, I'm going to let this manager over here give a talk about some things that you probably shouldn't do, and he'd probably yell at his employees about that. Director? Oh, that's right. He does. His laser pointer also changes slides. I should have known that. He probably has his old manager slide changer on his holster, on his belt. All right. Let's give Bill a big round of applause.
Thanks, everybody. So this is not my first time speaking at SecKC, nor is it my first time speaking at Kansas, but this is definitely the largest crowd I've ever spoke at SecKC. So let's hear it for you. And I'd really love it if I could get a selfie with everybody. Would everybody mind standing up and just coming forward and let's take a selfie together? I just think this is amazing. You don't have to. If you don't want your picture taken, that's fine. But if you wouldn't mind, come on, everybody stand up, come forward, let's take a picture together. Come on. Put the ones in SecKC shirts up front. All right. Is everybody in there who wants to be in there? Oh, feel free. You can flip us off. It's good. Come on, let's see what finger gestures you got. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you very much. That's awesome. I appreciate it. All right. Well, while you guys go back, so if you guys are here waiting for a good talk, you've already seen it. They called, SecKC called me yesterday and asked if I would talk, and I told them that I could put some crap together, and so this is what happened. Okay, well anyway, so my name is Bill Swearingen. I'm one of the founders here at SecKC. For those of you that are new and you stayed, I really appreciate it. For those of you that brought someone new, I appreciate it even more. I just really want to tell you a story about guerrilla marketing, and kind of give a call out to the audience for some help. But first, I want to tell a story. I want to tell a story about how this began. So, in the beginning, I found out about this conference called Compute Midwest. Has anybody attended Compute Midwest? Anybody attend? Well, from what I understand, it was a fantastic conference, and it was held at the Kauffman Center of Performing Arts, and I got really super jealous that it said Compute Midwest up there and not SecKC. And so, literally, the night before, I thought, this is a solvable problem. Okay, so I can go to Compute Midwest and take over, right? So my job was, I'm going to see what I can do to advertise SecKC at one of the more larger computer conferences here in Kansas City. So I came up with an idea. So I was going to attack the Wi-Fi signal at Compute Midwest. And my idea was that I would set up a Karma box, and for those of you that are not aware of what Karma is a Wi-Fi hacking utility that when your computer says, hey, I'm looking for my home Wi-Fi, hey, I'm looking for my home Wi-Fi, it says, I'm my home Wi-Fi, and it lets you join. And so that was my idea was, okay, I'll set up a Karma box, and when anybody whose phone or computer or whatever was looking, they would join my access point, and then I would control the internet, and I would advertise SecKC. So that night, I started working, and I said, okay, I can do this. I got a Raspberry Pi, I got a Wi-Fi adapter, an OTG cable, an SD card, put it together. It worked okay, but as I started adding up, it was 45 bucks. Yeah, it's kind of expensive. But whatever, I'm going to be able to take over the Wi-Fi at Compute Midwest and easily wow all my friends, be able to tell a story at SecKC. So let's go. And then the morning when I was getting to go, I don't have a ticket. Oops. Okay, well, so what I did is I got this instead. I went inside and I grabbed one of the table tents and I ripped it in half and put it around my neck and hoped for the best and hoped that would work as a ticket, and it did. And so as I was there up there enjoying some coffee, broadcasting to Compute Midwest about how you should go to SecKC, and if you and I kind of forgot to mention, what happens is if you were to join the access point and then try to go to anywhere on the internet, I would intercept your DNS and redirect you to my webpage, therefore advertising, hey, instead of joining, your Wi-Fi here, you should go to SecKC. I had a little ASCII text there that said, a little bit about SecKC, advertised the date, the location, Kansas Hall, and who was going to be speaking, those kind of things. Problem was I forgot to write in there how many, any kind of code to detect how many connects. So I'm not sure how many connections there was going to be, but I decided, or how many people I actually got to join. I have no idea. But I decided, hey, this is a great idea. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build all of these for people who join SecKC and give them out. But so as I started doing the math here, I kind of came up with it's going to cost us about $450,000 to be able to do that. For those of you math majors in here, you should really probably recheck that math. But I decided, hey, this is an idea worth exploring. We should look at something else. So I found this board. Has anybody played with the ESP8266 at all? I got a couple, yeah. All right. Well, so the interesting thing, I don't know, is Mike Lindsay in the house at all? So I don't see him here. Mike Lindsay came up to me in 2015 and said, you should check out the ESP8266. And I was like, yeah, okay. Thanks, I guess. And now in 2017, I was like, oh my God, ESP8266 is the best thing out there. So he's a little 2 years ahead of me. But so what the ESP8266 is a very inexpensive device that was created to add Wi-Fi to other inexpensive devices. Okay? So its sole purpose when it was created was to add Wi-Fi to a device. However, people being very creative, some hackers found out, hey, this device has an SoC on it already, a system on a chip already. Maybe we can port Arduino to it, and maybe we can get it to run Arduino. And sure enough, as of right now, the ESP8266 is very mature. It has a full stack, development stack. If you can write Arduino, you can write to the ESP8266. And even better, it costs $2. So shout out to our DEF CON badge team. Where are you guys at? Let's see your DEF CON badge teams. Here they are. So the DEF CON badges, if you guys haven't seen them, and I think I saw you guys were showing them off here a little bit earlier, the great thing about the badges that they used this year is they used open source hackable electronics, right? So they used the ESP8266's big brother, the ESP32, and that's what, it was the badge to have this year because totally hackable, and if you haven't seen it, what people have come up with, I'd say you check it out over here. Okay, so now I figured out, okay, well, I know what to do. I'm going to write new code, but instead of using Karma, I'm going to use Captive Portal. This has some unique advantages, and I'll explain here in a second. So I called up the greatest programmer that I know, the world's greatest programmer, Brian Garrity, over there. Yeah, Greg Anderson, whatever your name is. I don't know, Alice, whatever. And he wrote us some code so that when I deploy this device, this $2 device, and someone connects to it, they get a hacker pop-up. So here's you connecting to the device.
Wow.
And that was all Brian Garrity right there.
Where is it? Can you reboot it? We just locked it up.
Which one? I know, but which one? I got 3 of them. Okay. So right now what I've got is I've got a $2 device that is running it broadcasts an SSD. As you can see in this example right here, I'm broadcasting the SSID conference Wi-Fi, which happens to be very popular. And if you join it, you'll get a pop-up that kind of advertises SecKC. So I took it a little bit further, and if you stay connected, oh no, please, please, there we go. So I took it a little bit further. Okay, so I just need to stay far away from this. If you stay connected, I built a little embedded hacking challenge into them, and right now they're right here. So this is one, and I'll reboot it because the DSM guys are in it. This one's the other. If you haven't seen this one's a sight to behold. I literally tried to make it as scary looking as possible. There's wires coming out of it, just a little bit of duct, like black tape, just to make it look nasty. And then here is one just all by itself, and it really just looks like what I showed up there above. All right, Mr. Pohl, all 3 have been rebooted. So right now I'm calling them gotchas. So I was trying to I literally was like, okay, I got to come up with something creative. So how many of you guys remember throwies from the past? 10 years ago, you would make a little LED thing and you'd throw it and have a magnet and stick, and that was pretty awesome. Really, I think that those were popular mainly because the name was throwies. So if anybody has something more creative, I'd sure be interested to hear. But the interesting thing is, I deployed 3 of them in Interface. How many people went to Interface? All right, look at that. Did anybody see oh, I got one, yeah. Is that why you came, sir? Yeah, no, yes, all right, thank you. Buy that man a drink for saying yes. So this is the best story ever. So, I tried to go to Interface early. That didn't happen. So I'm there with, the 200 people. Meanwhile, I am literally taping these things to the bottom of the tables around Interface. And someone sits down. So those of you here would probably know, she caught me. She caught me, though that one caught me. Yeah. Taping those to the underneath of the tables, and I was like, no, I work here. This is my job. So I deployed 2 of those underneath the table and 1 at the SecKC booth. And the SSIDs I tried were first I tried all 3 Interface. So that was the Wi-Fi SSID there at the conference. And it didn't work very well. And what I found was that the SSIDs that they had at the conference were much more powerful than my ESPs, and so the Interface Wi-Fi's, nobody was connecting to them. So I thought, I'll solve this. I changed 1 to Interface Secure, 1 to Conference Wi-Fi, and 1 to Interface Wi-Fi, and I got 37 connections. Yeah, I know. Well, so then I took them to DEF CON. And I put them on my backpack. And as I walked around, so the 2 SSIDs that I put them on at Black Hat DEF CON were DEF CON Secure and Join for Hacking Challenge. And I added little beepers to them. So if anybody connected, I would get a beep because they were right here in my backpack. And 114 people, oops, no one caught me taping them to those tables. Sorry, let me edit. Nope, not gonna touch it. 114 connections at Black Hat DEF CON connected to my ESPs. So here's what I want to do. I want to blanket America with these things, right? Right. So to me, I think the best thing that we as a hacking community could do would be to deploy as many of these as possible around the Kansas City community, all having the SecKC, some sort of SSID broadcast and advertise SecKC. Perhaps the next SecKC is August 8th or whatever, and deploy them. So I started looking. What would it take to do that? It's actually pretty cheap, right? So right now I'm using the Wemos D1 Mini. That's I showed up here earlier. It's $2.76. The reason why I like this one, so any of those of you that have done any kind of programming with Arduino or even the SP8266, just connecting to it can be a real pain in the ass. The D1 Mini really solves that. You literally just connect to it with a USB cable and you get a serial connection. It's really easy to program. There's a LiPo charger and a battery. It costs us about $474. So I bought 100 of them. Look under your seat. So I didn't have enough to put them underneath every seat. So if you don't have one under yours, just keep looking. So this is actually why I went second, because I'm a huge letdown. Man, that was pretty awesome. I'm glad you guys all looked. So in true DEF CON style, this being the SecKC after DEF CON, I literally do have 100 of the Wemos, but I didn't get the LiPo chargers or the batteries in time. Literally today, I work from home like saying, please come today. Please come today. They didn't come, so I blame China. Hold on, I gotta blame China here real quick. I blame China. But I did order them. Okay, so I have 100 of these that I will be that are for you. Okay, so they are for the SecKC audience. Now I only have 100, and so what I'm really asking is anybody that wants to do something awesome, either for this project or SecKC, part of just our community, do something awesome right now, and you'll get one at the next SecKC. There's a lot of work that I need on these things. So while I do have, I have developed the base framework of them, it needs a lot of work. The captive portal, I've got 3 of them running right now. If you do want to check them out, I promise, I promise, I made them, okay? I wrote them. It's running my code as far as I know. I promise, if you connect to them, it won't do anything malicious. I will make you this promise. And if anybody wants to hold anybody accountable, hold me accountable, okay? So I'm standing in front of you telling you that if you want to check them out, they're completely benign. They will connect. They will show you a display what you saw there. There is a hacking challenge embedded in them. For those of you that do connect, you'll see that there's some problems with the captive portal. I need a little bit of assistance with that. For those of you that complete the hacking challenge, you'll see that it was pretty trivial, right? So there was it was a good step to get into it. And there's some neat things that you can do with it. I've embedded a little bit of some toys in there, but it could do a lot more. So if anybody is interested in helping writing code for them, the code's on my GitHub. Once again, I promise, if you want, that QR code is legit. It's benign. It'll take you to that GitHub page. If anybody wants to help, but it's on my GitHub, the Heaven Sent GitHub, or you can just search for it and find it there. Accept pull requests or whatever you got. And that's the end of my talk. So I'm going to leave it up. Feel free to come and look at them, test them, play with them, whatever you want. I really would encourage any pull requests at my GitHub page. And thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed SecKC. That does remind me. Real quick, hey, drop the music real quick. Whoa, thanks. That was quick. I do have some Alice pins left. So if anybody is here and didn't get a pin and would like an Alice pin, or came here and got a pin but wants an Alice pin, please come and see me. Thank you. Music back up.